Life has never been balanced, and clinging to the illusion that it should be is the fastest way to stay powerless. The earlier you confront this hard reality, the quicker you stop being treated as a casualty of it. At this very moment, somewhere in the world, a person with less intellect than you is receiving admiration. Someone physically weaker than you is shaping the choices of others, and an individual with fewer talents than you is enjoying the lifestyle you secretly crave. Why? Not because they're more deserving, but because they grasp the hidden mechanics of influence, while you were conditioned to follow a script written to keep you compliant. You were raised to play fair, while others were already rewriting the rules. You were taught to be agreeable while those with sharper instincts were maneuvering for advantage. You were instructed to wait politely for recognition while others seized it without asking. The system is not balanced against all people. It is tilted against those unwilling to recognize how the game is actually played. 5 centuries ago, Niccolo Machiavelli wrote bluntly about this dynamic, pulling back the curtain on why virtuous individuals often lose while cold, calculating figures hold sway. His observations weren't cynical ramblings. They were survival notes for those caught in the ruthless politics of Renaissance Italy. And if you think those lessons are outdated, you haven't been paying attention. The same psychological laws of power, dominance, and strategy govern boardrooms, relationships, social circles, and governments today. For a long time, I was blind to these realities. I was intelligent, diligent, and well-intentioned, but invisible. I watched as overconfident opportunists advanced while I stayed unnoticed. I saw shameless manipulators amass wealth and networks, while sincere people like myself were left behind. I observed charmers with no moral compass attract loyalty, while honest people were left isolated. It felt unjust until I realized something crucial. Life doesn't hand out rewards for good character. What gets rewarded is presence, influence, and control over perception. This realization shattered my naive worldview, but it also gave me freedom. Once you stop expecting justice from a world that doesn't care, you can finally play it on its real terms. Being ruthless doesn't mean cruelty. It means refusing to let emotions or illusions blind you. While most people move like pawns on a checkerboard, reacting to every push and pull, those who understand influence think like chess players, always considering 3 moves ahead, always controlling the board rather than being controlled by it. If you want to stop being dismissed, ignored, or underestimated, you must trade in the victim mentality for the mindset of someone who dictates outcomes rather than suffers them. The first psychological law you must internalize is this: fairness is not real. The concept of fairness was sold to you as a comforting belief, a way to keep you docile. Every time you wait for your turn, someone more decisive steps in front of you. Every time you expect reciprocation, opportunists exploit your predictability. You've been told that treating people with fairness is noble, but in practice, it makes you vulnerable. Think about your own experiences. How many times have you respected someone who didn't respect you back? How many times have you gone out of your way to help someone who later vanished when you needed support? How many times have you swallowed frustration while others casually broke the same rules you followed? This isn't random misfortune, it's programming. You've been conditioned to lose because you expect fairness where it doesn't exist. Machiavelli famously observed that small offenses provoke revenge, while overwhelming blows end resistance. That lesson applies not to physical violence, but to social dynamics. People remember minor humiliations and quietly plot to get even. But when someone establishes overwhelming dominance, others learn to accept their position. The mistake most people make is half measures. They offer weak pushback against strong personalities. They set flimsy boundaries with exploiters. They try to reason with those who only respect strength. This produces the worst outcome. You appear weak, while simultaneously inviting revenge. True psychological power means that when disrespect occurs, you don't waste words trying to justify yourself. You let your actions demonstrate that mistreating you carries consequences too heavy to ignore. You don't argue for better treatment. You create conditions where respecting you is the only rational choice. The second principle: ruthlessness is not rage, it is composure under fire. Many assume ruthlessness is an explosion of anger or cruelty. In reality, it's the exact opposite. Genuine ruthlessness is emotional command. It is the discipline to feel provoked without being provoked. Emotional people are easy to manipulate, press the right button, and they dance on command. But those who master their responses turn emotion into data, not instruction. When insulted or undermined, the weak argue defensively, validating the attacker. The disciplined individual pauses, notes the attempt, and asks, "What action secures the most advantage for me while disarming this threat?" Sometimes the best move is silence, which denies the attacker recognition. Sometimes it's a cutting but calm remark that exposes their foolishness. Sometimes it's one decisive act that ends the conflict altogether. The key is never reacting, always responding. Emotional restraint is the bedrock of authority. When people realize they can't shake you, they start respecting you. The third law: respect outweighs likability. This is where most people stumble because they've been trained to equate popularity with safety. Being liked feels comfortable, but it comes with hidden risks. When people only like you, they'll gamble with your trust because they assume you'll forgive them. When people respect you, they hesitate because they fear the cost of crossing you. Those who chase approval end up overextending themselves, saying yes when they want to say no, overlooking disrespect, and constantly trying to be included. But the respected individual reverses the equation. They decline without apology, they call out offenses directly, and they choose where to invest their presence. They don't seek validation, they are the ones others seek validation from. And here's the paradox: once you stop prioritizing likability, genuine respect and even authentic admiration follow. Fourth, decisive action builds authority. The surest way to lose influence is to constantly threaten what you'll never enforce. People who issue warning after warning train others to ignore them. Empty threats are social suicide. True power lies in acting rarely but decisively. You don't need to punish every slight, you simply need to ensure that when you do act, it's memorable and final. A single bold move carries more weight than 100 small complaints. Suppose someone repeatedly undermines you in conversation. The weak approach is to sigh, protest, or vent to others. The strong approach is to observe the pattern, then choose one carefully timed response, perhaps calling them out in front of witnesses, or calmly dismantling their point in a way that highlights their pettiness. That one decisive move reshapes the relationship permanently. Now, allow me to add more depth from my own perspective. Influence isn't just about defense. It's also about crafting an image that precedes you. Humans rely heavily on perception. Most people won't dig for the truth. They'll accept the story that's most convincingly told, which means your reputation is your shield and your weapon. If you don't actively shape how others see you, someone else will fill that void for their own benefit. This doesn't mean fakery. It means curating the version of yourself that highlights your strengths and makes others instinctively treat you with seriousness. Walk with presence, speak with clarity, and guard your personal narrative. People treat you the way you train them to. Another layer: control the story, not just the situation. In every conflict, facts matter less than the framing of those facts. Whoever sets the narrative first often wins. When challenged, don't merely defend yourself. Reframe the attack so that it exposes your opponent's insecurity or poor judgment. When you succeed, don't downplay it. Craft the narrative of strategy and intent behind it. Storytelling is influence, and silence seeds the narrative to others. Finally, stop seeing this shift as optional. Remaining blind to these dynamics doesn't protect your morality. It condemns you to be controlled by those already using them. The real question is whether you'll learn to wield these tools with integrity, or whether you'll continue letting opportunists define the terms of your life. Fairness is a choice, not a guarantee. Emotional control is a discipline, not a personality trait. Respect is constructed, not given. Influence is earned through decisive action, not endless words. Presence is curated, not accidental. Start small. Keep a record of how people treat you, and notice patterns. Practice one simple refusal each day to train your ability to say no without guilt. Rehearse responses to provocations so that when the moment comes, you're ready with calm precision instead of blind reaction. Shape your reputation actively. Decide what you want to be known for and reinforce it with behavior. Build systems where your time and energy are given only to those who demonstrate respect. As these practices compound, you'll notice a transformation. You'll stop being the person waiting for acknowledgement and instead become the one whose acknowledgement others crave. You'll stop being swayed by every push of emotion and instead respond from a place of deliberate strength. You'll stop living as a target of psychological games and instead become the one writing the rules. The world won't suddenly become fair, but you'll no longer need it to be. Human interaction is rarely governed by fairness. Influence belongs not to the most skilled or virtuous, but to those who understand how to shape perception, enforce boundaries, and dictate the narrative. Many make the mistake of relying on reason or constant reminders of their worth, assuming that people will notice and appreciate them automatically. In reality, recognition and respect are not granted freely. They are engineered through deliberate action. When someone disrespects you, the worst mistake is to respond with irritation in the moment, but let the broader pattern slide. A single incident may seem small, but if you allow repeated disregard without consequence, you teach others that your boundaries are negotiable. Instead, respond in a way that outweighs the slight, not because of the isolated behavior, but because of the cumulative message it sends. The disproportion is intentional. It creates a psychological shock that forces others to recognize there is a real price for mistreating you. You are not to be tested casually. Once people experience the sting of consequence, they begin to calculate more carefully before crossing you again. This method works far beyond personal relationships. In business, leadership, and social influence, your reputation is not built on constant effort, but on pivotal demonstrations. You don't need to prove yourself in every conversation. Instead, you choose key moments to act decisively. Your occasional but powerful actions shape how people remember you far more than ongoing explanations ever could. For example, you don't argue endlessly to prove your value. You perform one undeniable move that shows it. You don't make yourself endlessly available. You become scarce, so others feel the weight of your absence. People respect you more when they realize they need you, not the other way around. This principle of impactful action feeds directly into the deeper art of influence, perception management. In psychological terms, reality is less important than what people believe about reality. Your inner qualities matter only insofar as they are visible to others. Most individuals make the error of focusing entirely on being good, thinking their work, character, or achievements will speak for themselves. They won't. Human beings don't dig for truth. They react to surface signals. Status, posture, tone, social proof. These are the currencies of influence. If you don't shape how others perceive you, someone else will happily do it for you, usually to their advantage and your detriment. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago when he wrote that everyone sees what you appear to be, while only a few ever know what you really are. The implication is clear. For most people you encounter, the mask is the man. Your reputation, your image, your perceived worth, these become your actual value in the minds of others. This doesn't mean lying or faking who you are. It means being strategic about presentation. Showcase your strengths deliberately. Share your victories in ways that highlight competence rather than boastfulness. Associate with people and activities that elevate your status by proximity. Protect your reputation as if it were your most valuable asset because it island. In social settings, posture with intent, maintain steady eye contact, and project confidence even when you feel uncertain. Confidence spreads like wildfire. Insecurity pushes people away. Train others to see you as valuable, and they will treat you accordingly. But shaping perception is only one layer. True power comes from controlling the story itself. Narrative warfare. Every action, every event, every conflict can be framed in multiple ways. What one person calls leadership, another might call arrogance. What looks like strength to some appears as aggression to others. The facts themselves are secondary, the interpretation rules the day. Whoever owns the narrative controls meaning. In conflicts, it's not the truth that wins, but the story that spreads fastest and most convincingly. The first person to frame events usually gains the advantage. Because people rarely investigate deeply, they accept the simplified version told by a trusted voice. This is why you must not only act but also define the meaning of your actions. Failures should be framed as lessons. Attacks against you should be reinterpreted as proof of envy or weakness. Tough choices should be explained as principled and forward-thinking, not selfish. Consider cutting off a toxic relationship. Left unframed, others may see you as cold or selfish. But if you position it as protecting your mental health and insisting on mutual respect, the very same action becomes evidence of strength and maturity. The difference is not in what happened, but in how it is remembered. Mastering this art requires anticipation, asking yourself, before you act, how this action might be spun by others, and then shaping the story before they do. Layered over this is the concept of systemic authority. Instead of relying on anger, threats, or emotional displays to enforce boundaries, build predictable systems of consequence. When respect leads to more access and disrespect quietly results in exclusion, you create an environment where behavior polices itself. This is true psychological mastery because it removes your ego from the equation. People can argue with your opinions, but not with systems that operate consistently. Take the example of friends who cancel plans or arrive late. The reactive approach is nagging, complaining, or showing frustration. The systemized approach is simple. You only organize for those who commit and show up reliably. Over time, people learn that reliability earns more inclusion, while disrespect quietly reduces their access. No threats, no drama, just natural consequences. Systems, unlike emotions, cannot be manipulated, and this gives you enduring authority. Yet above all these strategies lies the final stage: silent dominance. The most formidable power is rarely loud. Those who constantly proclaim their toughness or intelligence are usually compensating. True dominance is subtle, often invisible, until its effects are felt. The most dangerous people in a room are often those who speak the least because they are calculating while others are performing. They move quietly, position themselves strategically, and act decisively only when the outcome is already secured. Silent dominance doesn't mean doing nothing. It means making moves that others only recognize when it's too late to resist. You build alliances quietly, gather information without exposing yourself, undermine adversaries indirectly, and advance your position without drawing attention. To outside observers, your rise seems natural, inevitable, almost effortless. That is the essence of psychological supremacy. The lion and the fox metaphor captures it. Sometimes strength must frighten, other times cunning must outmaneuver. Mastery comes from switching between them seamlessly, without signaling your intentions. Noise attracts resistance. Silence breeds inevitability. The ultimate truth is this: human relationships are arenas of psychological warfare, whether you acknowledge it or not. If you neglect to learn these strategies, you become prey to those who have mastered them. This isn't an academic debate or a philosophical abstraction. It plays out daily in workplaces, friendships, families, and societies. Someone is always shaping perception, crafting narratives, enforcing systems, and exerting silent influence. If it isn't you, it will be someone else, often to your disadvantage. My addition: cultivate inner detachment. Mastery of influence begins inside the ability to remain calm under provocation, patient when others scramble, and deliberate when others act impulsively. Combine emotional control with strategic systems, narrative foresight, and silent positioning, and you build a fortress of psychological authority that others cannot easily penetrate. In the end, remember this: people may resist raw power, but they almost never resist inevitability. Become the person whose influence feels unavoidable, whose respect feels necessary, and whose authority feels natural. That is psychological dominance at its highest form. As you go about your daily life, understand this: while you're just starting to grasp these insights, others are already putting them into practice to their advantage. Those with manipulative tendencies are exploiting the unsuspecting, taking advantage of people who cling to fairness as though it were a shield. Individuals who know how to command psychological leverage are quietly climbing above those who believe good intentions are enough. The reality is harsh yet straightforward. Either you master the rules of influence, or you become someone who is molded and directed by others. Society has conditioned you to think that studying these concepts is somehow immoral, but that illusion is deliberately reinforced by the very people who profit from your innocence. They want you harmless, transparent, and easy to predict, while they apply advanced psychological strategy to secure opportunities, respect, and authority. Each day you hesitate to adopt these lessons is another day someone with sharper instincts builds the recognition and influence you desire. Every time you choose to prioritize politeness over strategic strength, you hand over power to those who view kindness not as a virtue but as a vulnerability. The world does not reward endless niceness. It rewards those who can balance decency with awareness, empathy with boundaries, and charm with unshakable psychological strength. People who rise to the top understand this. Life is not a contest of who means well, but of who applies understanding with precision. What's needed today are not more agreeable individuals who fade into the background, but people who combine compassion with calculation, ensuring they can navigate social dynamics without being overpowered by ruthless players. If this perspective stirs something inside you, if you've grown tired of being dismissed, undervalued, or quietly manipulated, then this is your invitation to transform. Don't just acknowledge these truths, embody them. Make the decision to move from passivity to authority, from being a bystander to being someone whose presence is impossible to ignore. Train yourself to become the type of person who commands attention through action rather than through pleas. Niceness without psychological strength is nothing more than weakness disguised as virtue. But when paired with sharp awareness, Kindness becomes a tool of profound influence. You must recognize that growth requires rejecting the comfort of naivety. Think of it like training a muscle. Every day you avoid exercising your ability to assert, reframe, and strategically influence. That capacity weakens, while others are strengthening theirs against you. Influence is not reserved for the cunning few. It is a skill anyone can develop, but only if they are willing to see the world without illusions. To master it, you must accept that people are guided less by truth and more by perception, less by fairness and more by incentive. You don't need to abandon your morals. You need to learn how to defend them effectively by pairing them with strategy. This transformation begins with a simple but firm declaration. You will no longer allow yourself to be dominated psychologically. Speak it, write it, believe it, but most importantly, act on it. The era of being overlooked ends when you begin making deliberate choices that redefine how others see and treat you. Influence starts with awareness but grows through practice. Adjusting how you present yourself, learning when to remain silent and when to act decisively, and recognizing that your reputation is a weapon that must be sharpened, guarded, and used wisely. You don't announce your strength, you demonstrate it in decisive, rare, unforgettable moments. This is how you shift from being ignored to being respected. But be warned, hesitation is itself a decision. While you linger in uncertainty, others are consolidating control, becoming more dangerous, more persuasive, more dominant. You are always in motion toward one of two outcomes. Either you ascend into psychological strength, or you fall deeper into psychological submission. There is no neutral ground. The question is not whether influence will shape your life, but whether it will be you or someone else holding the reins. Time is not your ally if you remain indecisive. The only real power you have is in how quickly and completely you commit to becoming someone formidable. If you choose to step into this knowledge with discipline, resilience, and clarity, you will discover that you are not only capable of resisting domination, you are capable of becoming the one who sets the tone, defines the rules, and commands the respect that others chase endlessly. The choice sits in front of you now. Remain the agreeable pawn who hopes to be noticed, or become the strategic player who cannot be ignored. Influence belongs to the prepared, not the passive. Decide swiftly, because while you hesitate, someone else is already mastering the art of controlling minds, and they are not waiting for your permission.